Welcome everyone to my podcast. Welcome Émile. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Abla. Thank you for having
feeling?
me. I'm feeling fantastic, but don't worry, it's getting better.
So Émile, I've been to one of your businesses, Collab Space. Fun fact, but also the other big fact about Émile is that you have started over 40 businesses so far.
That's true.
How did it all happen?
Well, it all started when I was 4 years old. I started out as a subcontractor to my brother's paper route. He paid me 10 cents and a bag of chips every Friday, and I felt like a big shot. And then at age 7, I found out how much money my brother was making, so I staged a coup and took over the paper route. And ever since then, I became a serial entrepreneur. And what that means is I just had this inherent knack for the concept of business. I like taking an idea or a concept and turning it into a profitable, self-generating business. And over the years, I've done just about every type of industry business. And people always ask me, well, what did you like the most? And I'm like, I never really was interested in any one widget. I found out later on in life that I was really passionate about the art of business. And that's taking those concepts and turning it into something that made money while you sleep. Everyone's dream is to have a business that makes money while they sleep. Well, for me, I love the challenge of getting there. I've made a number of companies that were very successful, but I got bored once they were running on their own. And I was always looking for that next challenge and that next fire and, what I can put out, what I can do to, build something successful. And it wasn't just for me. I was helping a lot of people along the way. So that's kind of how the passion started, and it just kept on going. And honestly, I've lost track on the number of businesses that I've started and operated, but it's well over 40.
So one of them is Collab Space, what I just
Yes.
mentioned before. So it is based on the community idea and
Right.
people coming together in one space and just, not only having a space to work in, but having people maybe to work with, right? So when they
Yes.
go, they get to meet like-minded people. What was your idea or what was your philosophy behind having a space like that?
Yes, thanks for asking that, because that really was the culmination of my life's work to say. I've started a lot of businesses, but I've also helped over 300 entrepreneurs start businesses. And over the years, I realized that it was very expensive, or there was a lot of barriers for people to hire a mentor, hire a coach, find investors. And there's a lot of, young entrepreneurs or just entrepreneurs in general who didn't have those resources. So I wanted to bring something where I can take that knowledge that only executives could afford and bring it to every type of entrepreneur. And I realized in order to do that, you needed to build a community. You've heard, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community to raise a successful entrepreneur. No one's ever been successful on their own. And when you want to do something, you need a tribe, you need a village, you need a community to support you. And a lot of people starting out don't have that. So the idea and concept of Collab Space was to build a community so individuals can start companies, or if they had a small business and they needed to grow, there's a place where they had an instant community of support. So it was called a co-working space, but it was much more than a space. It was an actual business club where there was a curriculum. There was a group of mentors and coaches and trainers that were there to support you with your ideas and all the challenges along the way without you having to hire your own personal coach or mentor. So it was a great concept. It did really well. COVID kind of shut it all down overnight, but now it's starting to come back, and I'm really excited to build it back up again.
So for someone who is starting business and is looking for ways to get that mentorship, this is one of the greatest strategies, is to just, be part of a Collab Space.
Absolutely.
They get to meet people from the same community. What are other strategies that you think someone could use when they're just starting? So no business background,
Right.
no business network.
Right.
What are the other strategies, maybe 2 or 3, that they can...
Well, I always say it's important to have a network and have a community. So if there's no Collab Space in your area, if there's no club to join that gives you that instant, you got to start building it. And now everything's online with Instagram and social media. So you got to start by building that community. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to build a company first, spending all that expense and overhead on that infrastructure, without having anyone to buy, or not even knowing if anyone will buy their product or service. So building the community first is always the first step, and whatever you can do or afford to do that is very important, and I can always help guide people on that.
I love it. So these people, they come to your space, they work, and speaking about work, we know that working hard is not enough. You have to work hard and smart.
Right.
From your experience, what do you think is the perfect balance? Like, what does working hard look for you, and what does working smart look for you, and what's like the perfect balance in between? And if you have like a practical example, go for it.
For sure. Well, you kind of answer the question. Working hard on its own is not enough. If you're doing the wrong thing and you're working really hard at it, you're going to reap the wrong result, right? So being with the right people, working smart, timing is all very important, and knowing exactly where you're going and what you want to do. I always recommend to have a business coach, have a mentor, because that's someone who's been there before you that can guide you along the way and stop you from making a lot of mistakes, save you a lot of time, save you a lot of money. But definitely working smart. I'll give you a lot of examples. I work with a lot of tradespeople, and these guys are masters at their trade, whether they're a carpenter, painter, electrician, whatever the trade is, are really good at what they do. And they're like, you know what? I've been working for someone else. I'm the best at what I do. I'm going to start my own business. But they don't know anything about business. So they can work really hard and get clients and do a great job, but 9 out of 10 of them fail because they're not making any money because they don't know how to operate a business. So working hard is great. When you're working hard for someone else, you're making them a lot of money. They understand the business concept. But then all of a sudden you start to work for yourself and you don't understand business, you're not going to do very well. Business is a trade. Business is an art form. And you can't be a master at multiple things. So if you're a master at your art form, get someone on your team who's a master at business so that they can help you be successful.
So it's almost impossible to succeed alone, is it what you're saying?
There has never been a person in the history of mankind that has ever been successful on their own. Even though you might think, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Donald Trump, these are all successful people, but they didn't do anything on their own. Most of them didn't even do anything at all. They just built a really good team, and they're the face of that team. But it is impossible. I've coined one of my own quotes that says, the only thing you could be successful at alone is failure. And I've yet to find anyone who's been successful doing anything independently.
I love it. Well, you know what? You just said the one word that's going to bring up my next question, which is failure.
Oh, I love failure.
Right? We've talked before, and I know how much you love failure.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask that question. And from all of those businesses that you started, that you run, that you manage, that you helped people,
Sure.
start their own businesses as well, how does failure look to you, and what's the importance that it has to you?
Well, I joke a lot saying I love failure. Failure is fun, but I'm just trying to make a point. No one's ever succeeded without failure. I don't trust anyone who's never failed because they haven't learned. Failure is learning. So it all depends on what your personal definition of failure is. Failure isn't the end. Failure isn't, you're a failure, you can't accomplish anything, you're no good. Failure is a learning process. You look at famous athletes. They've failed more times than they've succeeded, right? Because you have to fail in order to learn. So I coach people and tell them, don't look at failure as a negative. I used to joke, I love watching The Simpsons, and Homer Simpson used to say, if you never want to fail, don't try. So sure, if you never want to fail at anything, don't do anything. But how much fun is that? So if you're going to try to do something, build something, you're going to fail. Accept it, learn from it. I love this interview with Jeff Bezos or Amazon. He was in an interview, and the interviewer asked him, how do you come back from such a huge failure as the Amazon fire? And he's like, well, if you think that's a big failure, you should look at the failures we're working on in the lab right now. And they laughed it off. It's because they understand it. Sometimes you got to try things and fail in order to make something better and get to the next level. Entrepreneurs are problem solvers, right? So we're always trying to fix a problem, and sometimes it doesn't work the first few 100 times or 2 times, right? And failure has to be expected.
You got to go through it.
Don't look at it as a negative. Expect it and enjoy the process.
I'm listening to you and I'm very curious. I want to imagine what failure could be. You know, you're a businessman.
Sure.
So what did failure look to you exactly in your experience? Was it a money loss? Was it a loss of like a good employee? What could failure, or what did it look to you?
Well, there's a lot of different things that could go wrong. So again, it's your definition of failure. For me, failure is just part of the process and it's a learning experience. The only real failure is if you do something, it doesn't go well and you give up. Quitting is the ultimate worst failure because you didn't learn from the mistake or learn from the situation and turn it into something good and make it better, right? So if you look at failure as a learning process and not it didn't work, I'm done, it's over. It's not the end all. You know, Rocky used to say, Sylvester Stallone, it doesn't matter how many times you get hit and knocked down, it's how many times you get back up, right?
Absolutely.
And in entrepreneurship, if you want to be successful and you want to be an entrepreneur, be ready to get knocked down multiple times. As long as you know that you can get back up, it doesn't end there. You'll be fine.
People could hear Émile Salem, he ran that many businesses. People could think, oh, it's because some of them failed,
Oh, absolutely. I will never say I'm successful at everything I do. I used to tell people I'm really smart because I've done a lot of things wrong, right? I've learned from my failures. I didn't have that many mentors or coaches. There isn't the greatest education system to teach people how to be a successful business person, right? So I had to learn from making a lot of mistakes, and that's where my experience comes from, real life experience, doing things and learning the hard way. So absolutely, and my biggest, the things I remember the most are my biggest failures. Absolutely, that's what made me who I am.
I would love to ask you this question. I don't know if you have an answer.
Okay, I'll try. I'll make something up.
I keep saying 40 businesses, and I'm just curious, if you had to choose maybe 2 of your favorite businesses, what would you say from those ones that you have run?
I've learned a lot from all those businesses, and man, we could talk for hours and I can tell you stories of things that I've done. But honestly, my passion is mentoring, teaching, coaching. I look at someone like you, if you're aspiring to start a business and you want to get to that business owner status, I want to help you get there. There's nothing that drives me more than helping someone achieve their dream or their definition of success and me being a small part of that journey.
So coaching, you would say?
Absolutely.
You would say is right now your favorite business.
Absolutely. And just teaching people how businesses should be run. A lot of people, they'll get a business card, they'll say, I do this, and they say, I'm a business owner. But, there's 3 levels of business. The first one is hobbyist. And what that means is you're doing something that's costing you money. You're not making any money. It's a hobby. My brother owned a production studio, a record label. And he didn't make a penny, and he didn't want to. He was doing it out of love. He loved music. He loved helping struggling artists, and he paid for everything because that was his passion. So that's a hobby. It's not a real business, even though it's a registered company, right? The next step is self-employed. That's where you're making money. You can make really good money or not, but it's something where you have to show up every day. The minute you don't go to work, there's no revenue. That's called being self-employed. You're still not a business owner. The definition of a business ownership is where you're creating revenue in your absence. So right now I'm operating 5 different companies. I'm making revenue from all 5 different companies, but I don't have to be there, right? So my goal and what I try to do is to help people who want to become business owners, right? If you want to be a hobbyist, no problem, that's easy. I can teach you how to spend money and not make any. If you want to create a job for yourself and be self-employed, which is fantastic, that's what a lot of people are doing right now, and it's great. I can show you how to do that. But if you want to take those 2 steps and become a business owner and maybe own multiple businesses, have a portfolio where you're generating money in your absence and you can do whatever you want to do in your time, that's where I'm helping people get to.
So you love coaching. I know you love coaching, and I wanted to ask you if someone was listening to us right now, someone who is starting a small business.
Yeah.
And money is always one of, the biggest worries of anyone who's starting business. What do you think are the expenses that a startup could avoid? And you can, give an example just so that your answer is based on that example, because I know this question is so wide.
Sure.
And you're going to tell me it depends. So I am anticipating that.
Sure.
So you can start off with just an example.
It depends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it does depend on where you're starting from and where your goal is to get to. So I've had people come to me and say, I want to get to this level, I want to do it in this time. Well, we need to spend money, you need to have resources. If you don't, we got to back it up or change the runway of how you're going to get there. But the biggest mistake a lot of people do is they spend a lot of money on infrastructure, okay? So let's say you want to own your own construction company. So they go and buy the fanciest truck and trailer, and they buy all the most expensive tools, and they hire all the designers and architects and engineers, and they build this huge team, and they get a big office, and they put a foosball table, and they make it, everything a great company has. But they have no clients. They don't even know if anyone's going to hire their services, right? So I always tell people, don't build the infrastructure. There's a saying, I before E, infrastructure before e-commerce. I think that's false. Go out and sell your idea first. Go out and tell the story as if you had all that and see if anyone wants to buy that business. If not, pivot and change it before you spend any money on infrastructure. And then once you've built your community and you have customers waiting for your product or your service, that's when you go spend the money.
I love it. Now, I asked you about the expenses that, startup could avoid. What are the expenses that a startup should not want to spend on because it is something that's going to help them a lot and push them as a startup?
So actually, positive expenses you're
Correct.
asking.
Yeah.
Well, again, it starts with, building your community. So whether it's social media, whether it's how are you going to build your followers, your community, your potential customers, you got to build that setup first, right? So whatever expenses are in building your community, getting awareness, getting your message out, and finding out whether it's a good message or not before you have to change it. That's where you should be spending your time, your resources. In some cases, it may not need money. In some cases, you can do it yourself until you get to a certain level. Once you have interest and you got to start providing, then you start working on the infrastructure side of things and the development. So it does depend because some businesses are service-based, some are product-based, right? So it depends on where you're at in your startup phase and where you need to spend the money. In some cases, legal and accounting are very important. But you don't need to hire a chartered accountant when you just have an idea, right? But you do need one. I find it really scary when I find these people who are, they're artists or tradespeople and they want to do their own accounting and their own legal and their own HR and on all the stuff they're bad at. And I tell people, focus on what you know well and outsource and hire the experts in the other departments because you're going to need them to be successful. You may not need them at day one, but when you do need them, get them.
And so spending, as a entrepreneur or a businessman, you would be spending money, but you're also spending a lot of your time and energy. And so I wanted to ask you, what are the times where you should take a pause? Because burnout is something that exists. A lot of the entrepreneurs go through that because they have to do everything on their own. Like you said,
Right.
Not everyone understands that they have to delegate and outsource certain areas of their business. So some entrepreneurs, they just believe in work hard, work a lot, and it could lead them to burnout.
Sure.
What is your idea about working hard not to reach that burnout? And so how much do you believe in that work balance? Is it just a myth for you? Or it is a realistic expectation from someone who just starts a business and they have to work because if not, it's not gonna, succeed?
Well, you have a couple of questions in there, so
Yes,
I'm going to give you
I'm going to give you
a few different answers for
Yes.
you. I'll start with the work-life balance. I hear so much about it. It's ridiculous. There's no such thing for a true entrepreneur where work-life balance. So if you find working 40 hours a week out of a job is too hard for you and you want to become an entrepreneur because you think it'll be easier, just don't do it. Okay? For an entrepreneur, 40 hours a week is a vacation, right? You're going to work more. But the difference is the type of person you are. Entrepreneurs live, breathe, eat, drink their passion, right? So I work 120 hours a week at probably minimum. I work nonstop, but I love what I do, so it's not work for me. I'm on vacation, I'm on a beach, and I'm meeting people, and I'm discussing work and entrepreneurship and asking if I could help them in any way on their journey. I'm always meeting people and seeing what I can do to support others. But it's not work for me, right? When you talk about work-life balances, usually you're doing something you don't like and it's stressing you out and causing you mental health issues. And yes, you can burn out, especially when you're working hard and not smart as an entrepreneur. And you do have to take care of your mental health. You do have to take pauses. You do have to reset and do different things to keep that, because if you can't stay stable, if you've burnt out, you're not going to be successful at anything you spend your time on. So yes, you got to take care of your mental health, absolutely. But if you think entrepreneurship is easier than working full time, you need to recheck your ideas there.
And so, was it the case for you?
Oh yeah, like I said before, I learned everything the hard way. I was the work hard, not smart. I didn't know what smart was, right? So I just kept doing everything over and over again, and being consistent at being bad and learning things the hard way. But that's what got me to know the difference now. So yeah, I worked nonstop. When I was a kid, I had jobs. I was in school. I had businesses. I was 14 running a landscape company, a cleaning company, while working scooping ice cream at Laura Seacourt at the mall and going to school and playing sports. Like, I didn't sleep. But that was my learning experience. I didn't have anyone to guide me, and I didn't really know who I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm still working on that.
A lot of the people, especially in the young generation, they have that, dream of being an entrepreneur because social media has been selling that dream life that comes with being an entrepreneur.
Sure.
How true is that?
Well, most people you see on social media that's flaunting success, they're not successful. Successful people don't tell other people they're successful, right? If you look at someone on the red carpet, all dressed up in GQ model and fancy clothes, they're trying to impress. They're trying to get there. The billionaires don't dress up and don't care because they're there. They don't need to impress anyone. So unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff on social media, whether it's appearance, health, success. Everyone's trying to sell something. Remember, the people who spend a lot of money and time on marketing is because they're not doing well and they need to grow their business. Companies who are doing well don't advertise. They're okay. They're doing well, right? So unfortunately, social media does give the wrong impression. And that's why I always say work with a coach, work with a mentor, work with a business shifu like myself, who's a master at the trade and can help guide you along the way, so you're not wasting time listening to things that are not real.
I know you said the businesses that are working don't have to advertise. At the same time, we're still seeing one of the biggest brands, literally advertising every day. So
Sure.
do you want to explain the difference between what you said and between the fact that
Sure.
big businesses
Oh, of course.
will keep
People still pay
advertising.
$50 million for a 30-second ad at the Super Bowl, and those are big companies, but they have something to sell. They're promoting, they're launching something new, and they're keeping their, being number one status. You have to continue. When I'm talking about different private sector businesses, that's not Coke or Pepsi, that do billions of dollars in sales. Their business is already coming through referral. They're not hungry or desperate. Or maybe they're at a page where they don't need to scale anymore, right? So you advertise to scale, to grow, or to maintain. So if you're at a level where you're doing well and you're growing naturally, you don't need to advertise. I think that's an expense for a purpose. So a lot of people, you remember the phone book? Remember we used to have yellow pages? I'm dating myself.
Absolutely.
We used to open up the yellow pages and there were full page ads and then half page ads and quarter page ads, and then there was just like a little line in bold. The line in bold was doing more money than the full page ads. Because I know I used to help people say, listen, you want to get big, you got to spend the money and put a full page ad in the yellow pages. So the bigger the ad wasn't the bigger the company, but it gave the impression to the client, oh, this must be a big company. They have a whole page, right? But it's actually the reverse in reality.
So does anyone can become an entrepreneur?
I can teach anyone the process of being an entrepreneur, but it really takes a special person. And you know what? Not everyone wants to live, eat, and breathe their dream. Not everyone has that passion to be a successful problem solver. Some people like just working for someone else, right? Their passion may not be business. Their passion may be travel or family or something else, and that's perfectly fine. If everyone was an entrepreneur, we'd have nobody to work for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That I agree 100% with. For someone who's listening to us, what are the 3 skills that you think they should be working on right now from whatever they are, if they don't have the money to, spend on the business right now, but they have time to spend on themselves? What do you think are the 3 skills that they can be focusing on right now to develop?
To what end result?
To become a businessman, or to just, have that basics of, if you want to start something in the future, you have what it takes to start something.
Well, it comes down to what it is you want to do, right? Because there's a lot of things you can learn on yourself. There's a thing called the internet, maybe you've heard of it, that has a lot of videos out there. So there's a lot of things you can do some self-research on. I always recommend, having a mentor, whether you can get someone who will volunteer their time, or if you have to pay someone, that money's worth its weight in gold.
What are the skills that they have to be working on?
Well, it's understanding the industry that they want to get into and understanding what they need to know. So the skills can be different for each one. If it's just the art of business, like I meet people all the time that say, I want to be an entrepreneur. And the first question I ask them, I go, what's your passion in life? And if you're not passionate about something, you're not going to be very successful as an entrepreneur. I need to know that you have a driving force, because entrepreneurship is hard. A lot of people say to me, I want to be rich. I want to make money. I saw someone on TikTok who's an entrepreneur and they make billions of dollars. I want to be like them. And I say, well, unfortunately, you're going to fail. And they're like, what do you mean? Money is not a strong enough motivation to be successful in life. And the reason is this: entrepreneurship has challenges. You're going to have failures. You're going to have things that you're not expecting. You may want to open a bakery and you're a really good baker and you love treats and you have that sweet tooth and you can really cook well, and all your friends and family have told you make the best cupcakes. But opening a bakery and being a business person is much more than just making a really good cupcake, right? There's logistics, there's real estate, there's legal, there's accounting, there's marketing, there's HR, there's staff, there's the government, who for some reason doesn't like small business owners and are always trying to hit you at every angle, and especially when things are going well. Well, if you don't have that stomach for challenges and you don't have that, support to how to deal with it, and your motivation is I want to be rich, you're just going to keep giving up and pivoting and saying, oh, I never really wanted to be a baker. I'm going to try this or I'm going to try that. And that's why 9 out of 10 businesses fail, is because their motivation is not right. I always say that the key to being successful as an entrepreneur has to have 2 things. One is a strong passion. But not only passion, it's got to be coupled with being in service of others. You've got to be making someone else's life better. Entrepreneurs are problem solvers. We make things better, right? We fix things. So if you're going to be a baker and you're passionate about it, you want to do something that's going to make people's lives better. Maybe you're going to be a gluten vegan baker. Maybe you're going to add something in there where your proceeds are going to help, the homeless or something. It's got to have some coupling of helping others. If you have those 2 things, you don't have to worry about money. The money will come. And the reason is, another way to be successful is you have to be disciplined and consistent. Well, if you're not passionate about something, you're not going to be disciplined and consistent, so you're going to fail. But when you're passionate and you're helping people and changing other people's lives, you're never going to give up. At no sign of trouble will stop you. And that's why it's important.
It sounds like the skills that you have mentioned are not necessarily something that we learn, in the traditional academic model.
Uh-oh, we're going there.
We're going there, absolutely. And a lot of the ideas that we hear nowadays is, you don't have to go to school. Spend that money on a business, or spend that money to go and actually learn the skill that you need for that business.
Yeah.
Is it something you would recommend?
So I've been given a hard time by many people because I've said so many negative things about school. And I want to make this clear. I think education is very important. The problem is there is no educational program anywhere that I've found that actually teaches proper entrepreneurship, that actually teaches you financial literacy. It's not taught in schools. The school system, especially in North America, was made in the early 1900s to train factory workers. It hasn't changed, right? We're not training entrepreneurs. We're not training free thinkers. You know, you got to start at this time and finish at this time. You get so much time for lunch, right? That's factory worker mentality. So there really isn't a great program. I know people who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get their MBA and their PhDs, and they still don't even know how to go make a business card or start a business. Like, they just don't know. So yes, education is important. I don't think there's a school program out there that's going to teach a successful entrepreneur how to be a successful entrepreneur. However, there are people like myself and consultants and coaches who've been there, who've done that. And maybe at another time I'll tell you about my plan of opening an entrepreneur university, but that's a whole other story.
I was going to ask, have you ever thought of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of your future projects?
It's always been a dream of mine to actually create a program to train entrepreneurs. But I'll just tell you this one thing. It won't have academic professors. The teachers will actually be the Richard Bransons of the world. Successful businessmen will be your professors, because it's important that you're taught from people who've done that. And it also will bring you people who can actually invest and be part of your business idea.
Absolutely. And so would you say that Collab Space provides that extra value of, you know?
Sure. Collab Space is a club. It's a community to provide you some support. It doesn't have all the necessary education, but as the owner and founder of Collab Space, I'm there to provide that extra education for those who want it, those who need it. I want to see people succeed. It starts with building a community where Collab Space is. The next step is, you know, having that mentor, that coach, that teacher, that trainer. It's more than coaching. Coaching is, you know, someone there to keep you accountable and keep you inspired, but they don't really tell you what to do. They're not allowed. It's the definition of coaching. Right? So you need a consultant, you need a trainer, you need someone who's actually going to be there and protect you from the things that you need to stay away from and guide you along the way. So that's my passion, and I've built a team of people to work with me, and I'm looking forward to helping as many people as I can get there.
I love it. I cannot wait to see what, you know, the results are going to be. And so people, young people, or, you know, whoever is interested in starting a business and being successful and having that entrepreneurship lifestyle, most of the time it comes with a certain impatience because they want to do well but fast at the same time. You know, they want to get rich fast.
Yeah.
And it is because on social media we only see the result. We don't see what comes behind it.
Right. We live in a time right now where everything is now, you know.
Absolutely.
Amazon Prime. I want to order it and have it here tonight.
Express delivery and whatnot.
We're in a very impatient world, but it's not real when it comes to entrepreneurship. You know, even the overnight successes spend 30 years preparing for that overnight success.
What is the real time frame of becoming successful? And I know, you know, there's no right answer, but just for someone who's listening and who thinks they can do it fast, what is the reality?
I've built a business in under a year that, you know, started generating profit and was, you know, successful to a state. Depending on what your idea of success is or what level you want to take a company, it takes that amount of time. There is no, you know, easy button. There's no, you know, magic stick that just turns something into a reality. There's work that needs to be done. And it could be you as an entrepreneur and your mindset. A lot of times I find it's the individual that's holding themselves back from success. Business is simple. You buy something for $1 and sell it for $3. Like, that's economics. That's not difficult. The hard part is your mindset, your motivation, your passion, your discipline, your consistency. And that sometimes is a personal thing that has to work through. So life coaching and mindset coaching and health coaching is all part of being a successful entrepreneur.
Like you said, businesses do take time to become an actual business and to become a business that makes you money. For anyone who is currently working full-time somewhere because they have bills that they need to pay, but they also have that project, a business that they want to start, and knowing that that business is for sure going to take time, whether it's 6 months, 1 year, whatever it is some time that it takes.
Sure.
what is the right thing to do? Because you need to keep paying your bills,
Of course.
but you need to be working full time, if not more, to make that business run. So what should someone do in this case? When can they just stop working full time and maybe just work on their business, or should
Sure.
they keep doing it at the same time?
So most businesses start as side hustles, right? You got to try something and see if it works. Sometimes you got to try something to see if you even like it. Some people think, I really want to be a baker, and they make that first cupcake and go, this is terrible. I don't want to do this. There's flour everywhere, you know? So you have to try something before you commit, for sure. What's the time, how long it takes really depends on what your level of income you need. So if you're making, $50,000 a year as a job and you need that just to break even and pay your bills, and you start a side hustle, well, you're not going to quit your job and start the business when it's not making any money. You might quit when the business starts making 30,000 because with that extra time invested, you can double it, triple it, and scale it, right? So again, the it depends answer comes into play because it really depends on the business you started, how much time you can put into it. I've coached some people who were doing that, and I told them, quit your job. Oh, but it's a good job with benefits and a retirement plan. I'm like, you're 30 years away from retirement. In 2 years, your business will make you more money than any retirement plan will ever give you.
Did they have any
Right.
money saved up? That's what made it realistic for them to stop working full time?
Yeah, or they had a partner or someone that they could lean on, right? I would never tell someone to give up everything you're doing and put yourself in harm's way to start a business, especially if you don't have the skill sets to do that, and it's going to take you a while because you won't be able to succeed. If you don't have support, you need support. If you don't have any support, it's very hard to start from scratch with nothing and have bills. But what I tell a lot of young people who are still living at home and don't have that mortgage and don't have 3 kids and all those things is that you're going to go to school for 4 years. You're going to end up coming out of school with a degree and still not be one day closer. You might be even further away from being an entrepreneur. It would be better and less expensive and more cost effective to go and volunteer somewhere for free, right? So if you want to be a baker and own your own baking store, go to a baker, someone you really like and respect and think is doing a good job, and say, can I work here for free as an intern? Most places will, say yes because they love the free labor, but you'll never work there for 6 months for free. You're either going to be terrible and hate it and quit, or they'll fire you and say you're wasting my time, or you're going to be so good that they're going to pay you to keep you. So offer your services and go work. There's no better education than actually doing something of what you want to build. So
Someone who is saving and is willing to start a business, how many months do you think they need worth of expenses to make it okay for them to put a pause on whatever they're doing and work fully on their business?
sure. Again, it depends, and I'll tell you why. We have to take a look at what their business is and how long it's going to take to develop it to be, revenue generating, right? So depending on the type of business, some businesses have a runway of 3 to 5 years before you're making any money. Some businesses you can make money in 2 weeks, right? You got a really cool product, you got a great way, you found a niche place to market it. I have some friends right now who by chance fell upon a product they saw imported from China that is not here, and they're at a job where they have clients that want this product but their job doesn't offer it, so they just became the middleman, and literally overnight they're making a few $1,000s a week by accident. So depending on what it is you're trying to build, we do that. But you always want to give yourself a minimum of 6 months of expenses to answer that question, to make sure you have some runway. But if your business is something that takes a lot longer, you may need more support. If your business is something that you can start generating some revenue, whether you're profitable as a company, but at least can cover some bills, you may want to get in there quicker. And that's something we have to work on in a case by case. There is no one set answer that covers all industries.
Absolutely, but you did give an answer, and I love that.
Thanks.
So you mentioned that overnight success. So it does happen sometimes. Overnight success.
It never happens. You can get lucky. You can get lucky. I've had a couple of businesses back when on eBay where I found a product in the U.S. that wasn't in Canada, And then I actually started selling the product in the US where people could buy it cheaper, but just didn't know. And it lasted about 6 months. It was a great little fun project, buying and selling some products. But it's not a true longevity business. So you can luck into things. I've bought and sold cars. I've done a lot of things where you can buy and sell equipment. I don't know if you've ever seen these shows where billionaires are given $100 and drop shipped into a small town in the U.S. and they have 90 days to make $1 million, and they show you how to do it.
Nope.
And they just it's a reality show, and most of it is they find a need, they find someone who has it, they create the relationship, and they just start selling other people's products to take $100 and turn it to $500, turn it into $5,000, and there's a lot of ways to make money, but if it's just that, it's a fun project. We're talking entrepreneurship. We're talking making a difference in the world. We're talking building something that's scalable, that you can, pass on generationally or exit and sell for a lot of money. That's a different story. And that's where you need support.
Okay. And so I'm curious, we've been talking, I was like, I want to ask this question.
Sure, go ahead.
What is the longest that it took you in your career to start a business? You told me the shortest it was 6 months, I believe, or 1 year, close to 1 year.
Yeah.
To run a business and make it happen. What is the longest? Just for people who are listening, that they know that you can have a successful business, but it could take up to as long as.
Sure. Well, I'm 55 right now, so far I've spent 55 years working on this plan of opening an entrepreneur university. I haven't started yet, so I'm not sure how long it takes. It depends, right? It depends on what it is you're trying to build and how much time and effort you're willing to put into it. You can speed things up when you have the resources. So if you have $1 million saved in the bank, and you have family connections that can connect you to the right people, and you have the ability to have a product built for you tomorrow, right? With unlimited resources, you can start a successful business in 24 hours, right? But if you don't have those resources, that's the definition of how long is it going to take. How long is it going to take for me to build the resources to take it to that level? If you're just trying to make, $100 a week, well, I can show you how to do that in 5 minutes, right? If you're trying to make $10,000 a month, well, that might take, 6 months or a year, or depending on what it is we're trying to build and what you need to do that with the resources you have to start with.
It sounds like it's really based on what the person likes, wants to do, what is their definition of success, of happiness. And I believe through your coaching, this is what you help people answer before you even go into, the actual strategy of doing business.
I've made the mistake of someone would come to me and say, I want to start this company, and I'd start showing them how to start the company, and one block after another, I'm like, why are they not getting it? I'm giving them the tools, I'm giving them the systems. Then I had to step back and realize they didn't really want that. And so they were stopping themselves from doing it because they weren't interested, or they had some issue that, was personal or private that was stopping them from doing what they needed done. So I had to step back, and we got to start at the beginning. For me to truly help someone, I got to make sure we're starting with the right foundation and we're going in the right direction. They say, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. It's so true to make sure we have that basis done before we start anything.
So whoever is listening to us and they love the character of Émile Salem, and they saw your value and they want to work with you, where can they reach out? Where do you exist?
I think I'm all over the place. If you Google my name, you'll see me all over the internet. I like email only because I'm a little bit old school, and I treat my email as to-do items. So I see my email every day, and I answer them. And if I don't answer them, it stays there until I answer them. Whereas text messages and Instagrams and different things, I may not notice, or I'll see it and forget about it. So my one of my emails is Emile, E-M-I-L-E, @collabspace.ca. I check that regularly, and that's a great way to reach out to me. Or Google my name. You'll see my phone number. I've had the same phone number for over 30 years, so it's listed.
I love it. Thank you so much, Emile.
Thank you.
I think we gave a lot of value to people listening to us.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy that you were able to, go back in the time, and because it is hard, with these many years of experience and businesses, I come up with questions and I have to take you back. Your answers were lovely, and I loved my time here with you.
No,
I
Abla,
think
thank you very much for having me. This is so much fun for me, and I love sharing. I love being able to help. So if I touched anyone listening today, that means the world to me. And if anyone wants to reach out and just have a conversation with me, I would love to do that as well. So please do so.
yes, and the comments are open for everyone who wants to ask questions, or I'll make sure if ever that happens, I'll tell you.
Excellent. Thank you.
And yeah, I'm pretty sure we're gonna see each other again, and maybe after you open that school of yours,
Yes.
I'm gonna get you here again, and I'm gonna ask more questions, and you'll tell us more about that.
Sounds great.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you, Émile. Cut.